What's going on, guys? We are back, and we are announcing the RLCS Winter Split. We're not announcing it, but talking about the RLCS Winter Split. We threw that out at the before the end of the Grand Finals for NA. James Bott, wonderful voiceover. Mwah. Perfect. But now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of what this next split will see for the format for both RLCS and the Grid. So, let's move on down. New split, new format, new schedule, yada, 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 all of that stuff. So, the only thing that was out in the public was that there would be a different format from Swiss, and that it would go from 32 teams down to 24. Split 3 will be 20 teams, and so on and so forth. World Championship, top 16, yada, yada. So we knew it was going to be 24 teams, which also can't really do Swiss at that point, so there was going to be a different format. So we decided to throw all 24 teams into a huge bracket, double elim, make it nice and easy, but also make it very, very intense. Now, there's a couple things to note here. 12 teams will auto-qualify for the regionals. Basically, it would be the 10 teams from RLCS that were supposed to be in RLCS 10, I guess, and then 2 extra teams with the highest points. Then the remaining 12 spots will be filled with qualifiers, and then the teams, again, will be seeded back into their 24-team elimination bracket, double elim bracket. Win and move on, lose twice, you're out, yada, yada. Grand Finals, though, will be a bracket reset. So keep that in mind. That was definitely one of those things that I know like a lot of people have different views on, and honestly, they're all very valid. Like, there's, the 1-game advantage, best of 7, 1-game advantage, best of 9, bracket reset, just 1 best of 7, doesn't really matter. Those are all viable in different ways and however you want to do it, but Psyonix went with the bracket reset. So it truly is, you have to lose twice and you're out, no matter where you are in the bracket. Now, once again, 24 teams, $100,000. We'll talk about the double elimination part in a little bit, and then we'll talk about that after the groups. One thing to note for the grid, the groups for the grid. One thing to note is points are increased just slightly, nothing too crazy, but they are increased this split. So instead of first getting 351, now they get 401. So it's pretty important to obviously do well, and the more you do well later on in the season, the more points you get. So you got 401 for first, 300 second, 250, 200. Now, obviously, these points are split up a little bit more because there is no, tied for third, 4 teams tied for fifth. Now it's only 2 teams tied for fifth, and so on and so forth. So even if you just qualify, you get 40 points. In the last split, I believe that was 10. So that is good for teams that even just qualify for this tournament. They will at least get the 40 points. Now, no team cannot come in last, if that makes sense. There will be teams that have buys in the first round and the uppers, but there's an automatic buy in the lower round 1, which we'll get to in a little bit. So you can still come in last, even if you have a buy. Give me 1 second. Gotta sneeze. Is it coming? It's gone. It's always gone when you're trying to do something. Anyway, moving on. The regionals will begin November 7th. So we have 1 weekend off, literally 1 weekend off, and then we're back at it. November 7th and 8th, 14th and 15th, a regional 1 for Europe. Keep note, this is a double elim bracket, 46 matches, could be 47 matches, I guess. It's still over 4 days, so the very likelihood is pretty much every match will be streamed, if not all matches will be streamed. We'll see how that all works out, but a high percentage of the matches at the very least will be streamed. And again, all these matches are going to be so crucial throughout, but 4-day event, so teams obviously are not going to play marathon days like they did with the Swiss, except if you get to the final day and you're in the lower bracket or something. But for the most part, you'll play your 1 or 2 games and then you'll be done for the day, so a little bit easier on the players. We'll talk a little bit about the ease on the players when we get to the grid. But then for Europe, again, it's 7th, 8th, 14th, 15th, then the next 2 weeks would be North America. Then we come back, and it's a 4-day weekend regional once again for Europe, Regional 2, December 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Then a 4-day regional weekend for North America, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. So the only downside here, I think, is that North America, they fell on the Thanksgiving weekends, or at least the 28th and 29th. That's a little bit unfortunate because, personally, I would have preferred if this would have flipped because obviously North America, that's a big holiday for a lot of people. Want to see family and all that, but a lot of these teams are going to be playing on those days. But after December 13th, there's about a month off. Then we start up again January 9th and 10th, and this is, again, a 2-weekend regional for Europe, and then we go back to NA to finish off the season before the major, whatever that may be, in sometime in February, because January will close it out. So that is what we are talking about for RLCSX. And actually, let's go over the double elim part now, and then we'll go over grid just to make this a little bit easier. So prize money is still $100,000. Just a little bit more prize money down near the bottom for the most part. The higher up prizing is basically the same, $30,000 for first and $15,000 for second. So nothing like that has changed too much. It's just more about there's going to be a ton of teams that tie in like the final spot, 8 teams, and they all walk away with at least $1,000, which is pretty nice. Compared to last split, I believe the minimum was 300, so pretty nice if you just make it in. But let's talk about this double elimination tournament. The way it works, if you don't know it, and this might be a little bit blind and it might be a little bit hard to see, but we'll try and zoom in as much as we can here. I guess we'll go like that. Sorry, it's all white. But top 8 seeds will have buys. As you can see here, the 1 seed, has a bye. They'll wait on these matches with number 16 and number 17. So basically what will happen is the bottom 9 through 24 are all going to match up. So the 9th seed will play the very worst seed in the tournament, the 24th seed, and we'll go from there. So you see 9th versus 24 is right here. Whoever wins, they then play the 8th seed. So if like everything went by chalk, by the top seeds winning, then you would be down to your top 16, 1 versus 16, 8 versus 9, 4 versus 5, so on and so forth. Or 4 versus 13, sorry. But so that's how that works. Now, so the top 8 seeds will have buys, so keep that in mind. And then on the bottom side, though, the lower bracket, it's hard to see this because it doesn't get shown in a 24-team bracket, is basically if you lose the first round, you basically get a bye in lower round 1 because you can't play each other. You have to wait for people that lose in round 2. So if you lose in round 1, say we'll take this one. You lost match 1. Number 17 will fall down to here. They would play the loser of 13. So 13 is right here. Very likely would be 2 versus 15. So since they are that seed, they're not going to play anyone too incredibly tough. So unless the 2 seed obviously falls. Now that is a great bonus for the teams that lose in the first round because they get that free bye. But the one nice thing is even for teams near the top, it is impossible to go out in the first round, like to come in last by losing to 2 top 8 teams. It's not even possible because if you win your first round, one, that there's no top 8 teams here anyway. So the first round. So say you win that and then you lose against a top 8 team in the upper rounds, you will then go down and play a team that lost in round 1. So you're guaranteed to not play a top 8 team in the first round of the lower bracket if you at least beat the other teams that you're supposed to. So that is one good thing. That is basically what this first round is for. It's not only for that, obviously, but your seeding will be much better when you go down to the lower bracket if you win this first round. And obviously, you get the opportunity to continue on in the upper bracket, which is what everyone wants. So that is pretty nice. And then, so after that, you move on, and teams will slowly come down the bracket like they normally would. The further you go, the more rounds you don't have to play in the lower bracket, yada, yada, so on and so forth, until we get to the finals, which will be a bracket reset potential. So there you go. That's how that all works. Moving on, we'll talk about the grid. So let's move on down here. So the grid. First up, change the format of the grid. Take a quick look at the format. We'll just read this. We'll look. The 16 qualified teams, both Europe and North America, will be divided into 4 groups of 4 teams. Day 1, teams will play through a round-robin group stage, and matches will be played for seeding purposes and points. No teams are eliminated on day 1. So basically what that means is you will play out your group. It'll be round-robin. It'll probably be the same, normal tiebreakers that you've always seen. You do the game differential, then you do maybe goal differential, if it comes down to that, or head-to-head, or whatever. But the amount of wins you get in your group stage will be awarded points. So every single match will matter, and also because you make it to the bracket no matter what, you'll have a decent chance at any point in the group stage to at least move up 1 spot, right? So you'll want to play all your games to the fullest. This is also good for the orgs, because the orgs then get a guaranteed 3 matches on their day for their stream, so they get to do that. Then day 2, everyone goes to a bracket, single limb only. So again, orgs will get their 2 days of streaming because we're going from 9 weeklies to 4 2-day events. So they lose out on 1 day, but for the most part, orgs get all their streams back, and you will play in this bracket. So basically, I'll show you an example of this in a little bit, but first we'll go over the dates. Then the winner of the bracket will be crowned the week's champion of the grid. They'll obviously get more points as you go further on in the bracket, and prize money, yada yada, and all of that. So that's how that works. I don't think they say anything about prize money yet here for grid. It doesn't look like it, so we'll wait and see what that is. But with this new format, and I think this is the most important part, only one region will play per week of the grid. This means that each region will have 4 tournaments in the winter split, and then we'll see the schedule below. Now, the reason for this is trying to reduce maybe like the burnout on players, where they're like, oh, we have to play grid on this day, then we have a 4-day regional like in the same week. That's 5 days of competition all in the same week. So generally, so anytime you see a team play in the grid, or that region playing the grid, they're not playing that weekend going into their game. So as we can see here for Europe, their first one, November 26th and 27th, that actually falls on Thanksgiving. North America, that is when their regional is taking place. So like at all times, for the most part, you will see both regions play. It's just, will they play in their normal regional, or will they play in the grid? So you'll still get a lot of action from these regions. It's just split up a little bit more, so it's a little bit less of a grind for the players. So you can see that right there. North America, 12th and 13th, right in between the regional weekends for Europe. So again, we'll see Europe on the weekend. We'll see North America during the week then. Then for the 4-day events, I want to see how this one exactly works out. So this one gets a little bit grindy, I think, because you obviously play your regional, as you can see here for Europe, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And no matter what, you either play either at the beginning of the week or into the next week. So for this case, Europe will play the following week on the 8th and 9th. So they'll have a day off, and then they'll play 2 days of grid again there. So that's a little bit grindy, but generally it's better. And then North America will start up their 4-day weekend, and then they'll play, I believe. They actually play on December 1st and 2nd, so that's right after their North America regional here. So a little bit less grindy for them. It just kind of worked out for the dates because they want to keep, the Christmas time with a big break. So those are the first 2 dates for the first 2 grids. Then we'll come back in January. Europe starts off right after the New Year, and I believe so. That's on. And then they also have their regional the following week, which is still a pretty big gap. This seems like these dates are wrong. I don't know why. 2nd and 3rd. Let's see what dates those are. Maybe it's a weekend? I'm not really sure. Oh, it is a weekend. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so one of the grids is going to be on a weekend that is normally an off week going into it. So that is Europe. And then North America, the 7th and the 8th. That seems off, but hey, maybe they're giving them a weekend one. I'm not really sure. Then North America gets Thursday and Friday the following week. So there you go. Those are those dates right there. Followed by Europe. So we look at this again. NA, they don't really play for a while here. As you can see, Regional 3 doesn't start for a long time for them, so they have a pretty ample time there. They actually have 2 grids before their final regional, and then Europe has 9th, 10th, 16th, and 17th. And they will play kind of in between both of those. And I think that's just to get everything done and out of the way, so you're good to go going into whatever major happens in February. So that's how the grid works. Now I'm going to show you an example in case you guys are kind of confused on how this works. Now this might not be the exact seeding or anything like that for the groups, but this is generally how it would play out. So as you can see here, I'll probably zoom in a little bit for you guys because this is a little bit, we'll go 200%. So basically, it would look something like this, where the groups are weighted fairly evenly with seeds. As you can see here, the groups are slightly off seed, but 1 seed off, or 2 seeds off technically, I guess, but 1 on each side is not the end of the world. So they get seeded into these groups again, 1 through 4 seeds. They're in completely different groups, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, 13 through 16. And they will be seeded like that. They'll play their round-robin group stage. Then, depending on where you place, is where you will go into the bracket. So, as you can see, number 1 with Group A, number 2 from Group B, number 3 from Group C, and number 4 from Group D would all be on this first part of the bracket. We can see it here, 1A versus 4D, 2B versus 3C, and if everything went according to plan, the weight of that bracket would be 34, and all of them are 34 across the board here, like in this example. It's not, again, exactly what could happen, but we'll see. So that's how that bracket would play out. 1A would play 4D, the winner would play the winner of 2B and 3C, and they would continue on, and then they would play. So they would come out of that group. One of these teams comes out. They would play one of the teams that comes out of this green side group, and we continue on. That's when we're at our top 4, and you just continue on through this bracket. It's not completely drawn out, but you kind of get the point here. But that's how that would all work out. So as you can see, that each time for these brackets, they take a spot from one of those 5 through 8 groups of seed, 9 through 12, 13 through 16, and 1 through 4. So that's how that would all play out. And that's it. You got your grid. You got your groups. If you win in groups, you get more points. And then if you win in bracket, you obviously get more points as well. And then there'll be some prize money on the line. Now, last time it was, $10,000 per for 9 weeks. So we'll see what they do. Maybe that's the same amount of money, $90,000. It'll have to be split differently, obviously, because that was only 4 tournaments. So we'll see what they do. But that is how it all works out. So those are the 2 new formats for RLCS Winter Split. Let me know if you like them. Let me know if you hate them. I've seen a lot of the Reddit comments going both ways. People think a little bit differently on both. But the main reasoning behind the Winter Split, or how we went from fall to winter, was we want to, or at least I want to, and this is kind of what Cy wants, but obviously this is more my opinion. It's not necessarily directly what they are saying too. But wanted drastically different formats. So in the first split, tons of games. Playing a bunch. We really want to see who is the best of the best and seed relatively well. Now that we have seeds that are relatively accurate, we can then go into something more extreme, like 24-team, double elimination, everything on the line, every single match. People really can't complain about their seeds all that much because it comes off playing, whatever it was, 500 games, 400 games per region in Split 1 to determine the seeding for Split 2. So we'll do that. And it's a little bit more extreme, but now also in the first split, you couldn't see all the games. And, honestly, a lot of games didn't have that much importance. And now in Split 2, you're going to be able to see most, if not all, the games, and they all mean so much. And that is going to be a lot of fun to just get the difference there. And obviously, things are going to go kind of haywire throughout these brackets at times where maybe a team falls down early and that could screw up some other team. But honestly, that's life. That's just every single playoff in anything. The one thing I don't get is when people complain. It's like, oh, they got an unlucky bracket. It's like, guys, 1, there's 3 regionals. So you have time to make up for it. 2, I don't see teams complaining all that much in the World Cup where they're like, hey, we waited 4 years for this and now we got this group draw and now we're screwed. It's life. You play what's in front of you, you win what's in front of you, and that's all that matters. And I never really got that argument too much. Because, if there's only 1 tournament for the entire split, I get it. But, we got 3 regionals, we got a major, hopefully international major soon, who knows. But tons of ways to earn points to get to that World Championship. We will have our top 6 when we get there for NA in Europe, and then our top 2 for SAM and OCE as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Winter Split is here. Every single game matters. Everything's going to be on the line. Going to be great. But that'll do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. And again, leave your comments below. Likes and dislikes. I don't care. You say it's the greatest format you've ever seen. Say it's the worst format. And you can tell me to go hop off a bridge. I don't care. Whatever you want to say, throw it in the comments below. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.